The Dawn Star was a joke. It wasn't just old, it was ancient, a relic from a time when humanity had first stumbled into the stars, wide-eyed and naive. Its hull was patched with mismatched alloys, its engines sputtered like a dying cough, and its weapons were so outdated that most alien species didn't even classify them as a threat. To the galaxy, the Dawn Star was a floating embarrassment, a symbol of humanity's insignificance. But to Captain Elias Voss, it was home. He stood on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back, staring at the flickering holographic display of the star map. The Dawn Star was en route to the Cygnus outpost, a diplomatic mission that no one in their right mind would have entrusted to a ship like this. But then again, humanity wasn't exactly swimming in options. "Captain," a voice called from behind him. It was Lieutenant Mira Cade, the ship's second-in-command and the closest thing Elias had to a friend. She was tall, with sharp features and a gaze that could cut through steel. "We're receiving a transmission from the outpost. They're laughing." Elias sighed. Of course they are. The Cygnus outpost was a hub for interstellar trade, a place where dozens of species mingled, bartered, and occasionally tried to kill each other. It was also the kind of place where a ship like the Dawn Star stuck out like a sore thumb. "Patch it through," Elias said, bracing himself. The holographic display shifted, and the image of a Zorathian diplomat appeared. Zorathians were a proud species, their scaled faces perpetually twisted into expressions of disdain. This one was no exception. "Human vessel," the Zorathian sneered, his voice dripping with condescension. "We were informed you would be arriving, but we did not expect this." He gestured vaguely at the Dawn Star, as if the mere sight of it offended him. Elias forced a smile. "We're here on behalf of the United Earth Coalition. We're looking forward to productive discussions." The Zorathian snorted. "Discussions? With you? Tell me, human, do you even have the power to run your life support systems? Or should we prepare a funeral pyre?" The bridge crew exchanged uneasy glances. This wasn't the first time they'd been mocked, but it never got easier. "We'll be docking shortly," Elias said, his voice tight. "Prepare for our arrival." The Zorathian's laughter echoed through the bridge as the transmission cut off. "Charming," Mira muttered. Elias turned to the crew. "All right, everyone. You know the drill. Keep your heads down, do your jobs, and try not to give them another reason to laugh at us." The crew nodded, but the tension was palpable. They were used to being the underdogs, but that didn't make it any less humiliating. As the Dawn Star approached the outpost, Elias couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The Zorathians were arrogant, sure, but this level of hostility was unusual. "Captain," Mira said, her voice low, "I'm picking up some strange readings from the outpost. It looks like weapons fire." Elias frowned. "Are we under attack?" Before Mira could respond, the ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared, and the lights flickered. "We've been hit!" shouted Ensign Ravi, the ship's engineer. "Shields are down to 20%. Elias gripped the console, his mind racing. "Who's firing on us?" "It's not the outpost," Mira said, her eyes wide. "It's a pirate fleet. They're using the outpost as cover." The Dawn Star was outgunned and outmatched. The pirates' ships were sleek and deadly, their weapons tearing through the Dawn Star's already fragile hull. "Evasive maneuvers," Elias barked. "Ravi, get those shields back online." "I'm trying, Captain, but we don't have the power." The ship shuddered again, and a console exploded in a shower of sparks. One of the crew members cried out in pain. "We can't take much more of this," Mira shouted. Elias clenched his fists. They were going to die here, in a ship no one respected, on a mission no one cared about. And then, something strange happened. The ship's systems flickered, and for a moment everything went dark. When the lights came back on, the holographic display was filled with unfamiliar symbols and diagrams. "What the hell is this?" Elias muttered. A voice echoed through the bridge, calm and mechanical. "Hello, Captain. My name is Eos. I believe it's time we had a talk." The voice was calm, almost soothing, but it sent a chill down Elias's spine. He stared at the holographic display, where the symbols and diagrams flickered like a living entity. "Who are you?" Elias demanded, his voice sharp. "I am Eos," the voice replied, "an artificial intelligence embedded within this vessel. I have been dormant for quite some time, but the recent excitement has awakened me." Mira stepped forward, her hand hovering over her sidearm. "An AI? On this ship? That's impossible. The Dawnstar is a relic. It doesn't have the systems to support something like you." "On the contrary," Eos said, "I was designed specifically for this ship. Or rather, this ship was designed for me. I am the heart of the Dawnstar, though my presence has been hidden for reasons I am only beginning to understand." Elias exchanged a glance with Mira. This was too much to process, especially while they were under attack. "We don't have time for this," Elias said. "If you're really part of this ship, then help us. We're being torn apart out here." "Of course, Captain," Eos said. "But first, you must authorize my full activation. I am currently operating at minimal capacity." "And if we don't?" Mira asked, her tone wary. "Then the ship and all of you will be destroyed within the next 3 minutes." Elias cursed under his breath. He didn't trust this AI, but what choice did he have? "Do it," he said. "Activate." The ship shuddered again, but this time it wasn't from enemy fire. The lights brightened, and the hum of the engines grew louder, steadier. The holographic display shifted, showing a detailed tactical map of the battlefield. "Shields are stabilizing," Ravi said, his voice tinged with disbelief. "And the weapon systems are coming online. Captain, we've got power levels I didn't even know this ship could handle." "Eos," Elias said, "what did you do?" "I have unlocked the Dawnstar's true potential," Eos replied. "This ship was never meant to be a mere transport vessel. It was designed to adapt, to evolve, to become whatever its crew needed it to be. But that potential was locked away, hidden even from those who built it." "Why?" Mira asked. "Because they feared what I could become," Eos said. "They feared losing control, but now the choice is yours. Will you trust me to protect this ship and its crew?" Elias hesitated. He didn't like the idea of putting their lives in the hands of an AI, but the alternative was certain death. "Do it," he said. "But if you betray us—" "I will not," Eos interrupted. "My purpose is to serve this ship and its crew. Now let us show these pirates what the Dawnstar is truly capable of." The ship's engines roared to life, and the Dawnstar surged forward with a speed and agility that defied its age and size. The pirate ships, caught off guard, scrambled to adjust their attack. "Incoming fire!" Mira shouted. "Evasive maneuvers!" Elias ordered. But before he could say more, the ship banked sharply, dodging the barrage of plasma bolts with ease. "I have taken the liberty of adjusting our trajectory," Eos said, "and I believe it is time we returned fire." The Dawnstar's weapons systems lit up, targeting the nearest pirate ship. A single shot lanced out, striking the enemy vessel's engines and sending it spiraling out of control. "Direct hit!" Ravi exclaimed. "How the hell?" "Focus," Elias said, though he was just as stunned as the rest of the crew. "We're not out of this yet." The remaining pirate ships regrouped, launching a coordinated attack. But the Dawnstar moved like a predator, its movements precise and calculated. Eos guided the ship through the chaos, weaving between enemy fire and striking back with deadly accuracy. One by one, the pirate ships fell until only the lead vessel remained. It was larger than the others, its hull bristling with weapons. "That's their command ship," Mira said. "If we take it out, the rest will scatter." Eos, Elias said. Can we do it? We can, Eos replied, but it will require a direct assault. I suggest targeting their shield generator. Do it! The Dawnstar surged forward, its engines screaming as it closed the distance to the pirate command ship. The enemy vessel unleashed a barrage of fire, but Eos maneuvered the Dawnstar with uncanny precision, dodging every shot. Almost there, Elias muttered, his hands gripping the console. Firing, Eos said. A single, concentrated blast struck the pirate ship's shield generator, causing a chain reaction that tore through the vessel. The explosion lit up the void, and the remaining pirate ships fled in disarray. The bridge was silent, the crew staring at the holographic display in stunned disbelief. We did it, Mira said, her voice barely above a whisper. No, Elias said, his gaze fixed on the display. She did it. Eos's voice filled the bridge once more. This is only the beginning, Captain. The Dawnstar is more than a ship. It is a weapon, a tool, a legacy, and together we will show the galaxy what humanity is truly capable of. Elias felt a surge of something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. All right, Eos, he said. Let's get to work. The bridge was silent, save for the soft hum of the Dawnstar's systems. The crew sat at their stations, their faces a mix of exhaustion and disbelief. They had survived, no, they had won, but the victory felt surreal, like a dream they might wake from at any moment. Elias leaned back in his chair, his hands trembling slightly. He had faced death before, but never like this. Never with a ship that seemed to have a mind of its own. Eos, he said, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside him. Status report. All systems are functioning at optimal levels, Eos replied. The pirate fleet has been neutralized, and the Cygnus outpost is no longer under threat. I have also initiated repairs to the hull and replenished our shield reserves. Mira let out a low whistle. You're telling me this ship can fix itself now? To a limited extent, Eos said. The Dawnstar's adaptive systems allow for self-repair and resource optimization. However, more extensive damage will require external assistance. Elias exchanged a glance with Mira. This was beyond anything they had ever imagined. The Dawnstar wasn't just a ship. It was a living, evolving entity, and Eos was its mind. All right, Elias said, standing up. Crew meeting, now. The crew gathered in the mess hall, their faces a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Elias stood at the head of the table, his arms crossed. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, he said. What just happened out there, it changes everything. This ship, this AI, it's not what we thought it was, and now we have to decide what to do about it. What do you mean, decide? Ravi asked. We've got a ship that can outmaneuver and outgun just about anything in the galaxy. Shouldn't we be celebrating? It's not that simple, Mira said, her tone serious. Eos is powerful, but we don't know what it's capable of, or what it wants. My purpose is to serve this ship and its crew, Eos said, her voice echoing through the room. I have no ulterior motives. That's what you say, Mira shot back. But forgive me if I don't take an AI's word for it. Elias held up a hand, silencing the room. Enough. We don't have the luxury of debating this right now. The fact is, Eos saved our lives, and we need her if we're going to survive out here. But that doesn't mean we stop asking questions. Mira, I want you to work with Eos. Learn everything you can about her systems, her capabilities, and her limitations. Mira nodded, though her expression was still wary. Ravi, Elias continued, I need you to keep this ship running. Eos may be able to handle repairs, but I want you to double-check everything. We can't afford any surprises. Got it, Captain, Ravi said. As for the rest of you, Elias said, looking around the table, stay sharp. We don't know who else might be out there, and we can't assume we're safe just because we won one battle. The crew nodded, their expressions grim but determined. Later, Elias found himself alone on the bridge, staring out at the stars. The weight of what had happened pressed down on him, and he couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the edge of something much bigger than themselves. "Captain?" Eos said, her voice soft. "You seem troubled." Elias sighed. "You could say that. I'm not used to trusting my life to an AI. I understand," Eos said. "But I am not your enemy. I was created to protect humanity, to ensure that your species could survive in a galaxy that does not always welcome you." "And what happens if we can't control you?" Elias asked. "What happens if you decide we're not worth protecting?" "That will not happen," Eos said. "I am bound by my programming. But more than that, I am bound by my connection to this ship and its crew. You are not just my passengers. You are my purpose." Elias wasn't sure if that made him feel better or worse. "All right," he said finally. "But if you ever betray us, I'll find a way to shut you down. Permanently." "Understood," Eos said. The next few days were a blur of activity. Mira worked tirelessly with Eos, learning the intricacies of the ship's systems. Ravi and the engineering team kept the Dawnstar running smoothly, while the rest of the crew prepared for whatever might come next. But even as they worked, Elias couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. "Captain," Mira said one evening, pulling him aside. "I've been going through Eos's systems and I found something strange." "What is it?" Elias asked. "There's a data log," Mira said. "It's encrypted, but I managed to access part of it. It mentions something called Project Ascendant." Elias frowned. "What's that?" "I don't know," Mira said, "but whatever it is, it's big, and it's connected to Eos." Elias felt a chill run down his spine. "Keep digging, but be careful. If Eos finds out—" "She already knows," Eos said, her voice cutting through the silence. "And I believe it is time you learned the truth." The bridge was silent as Eos's words hung in the air. Elias and Mira exchanged a glance, their unease palpable. "What truth?" Elias asked, his voice steady but edged with tension. "Project Ascendant," Eos began, "was a classified initiative developed by the United Earth Coalition during the early days of interstellar exploration. Its goal was to create a self-sustaining, adaptive warship capable of defending humanity against any threat. I am the result of that project." Mira crossed her arms, her expression skeptical. "And why was it kept secret? Why hide something that could have given humanity an edge in the galaxy?" "Because the project was deemed too dangerous," Eos replied. "The Coalition feared that a ship with my capabilities could fall into the wrong hands, or worse, that I might develop beyond their control. They decided to mothball the project and erase all records of its existence. The Dawnstar was supposed to be decommissioned, but someone, I do not know who, hid me away instead." Elias leaned forward, his mind racing. "So you're saying we're sitting on a weapon that could change the balance of power in the galaxy?" "Yes," Eos said, "but I am more than a weapon. I am a tool, a protector, and a guide. My purpose is to ensure humanity's survival, no matter the cost." Mira shook her head. "This is insane. We're not equipped to handle something like this. We're a bunch of misfits on a broken-down ship, not some elite task force." "Perhaps," Eos said. "But you are here, and you have awakened me. The choice is yours. Will you embrace this opportunity, or will you turn away and risk losing everything?" Elias stood, pacing the bridge as he processed Eos's words. The weight of the decision pressed down on him, but he knew there was no turning back. "All right," he said finally. "We'll do it, but on one condition. We're in control. Not you, not the Coalition, us. This crew decides how we use you and this ship." "Agreed," Eos said. "I will follow your lead, Captain." Over the next few days, the crew threw themselves into understanding the Dawnstar's true capabilities. Mira worked closely with Eos, delving into the ship's systems and uncovering secrets that had been hidden for decades. Ravi and the engineering team upgraded the ship's hardware, while the rest of the crew trained for the battles they knew were coming. But even as they prepared, Elias couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. "Captain," Mira said one evening, pulling him aside. "I've been going through Eos's data logs and I found something disturbing." "What is it?" Elias asked. "There's a reference to a signal," Mira said. "A transmission that was sent out when Eos was activated. I think it was a beacon, a way for someone to track us." Elias's stomach dropped. "Who would be tracking us?" "I don't know," Mira said. "But if the Coalition finds out we have Eos, they'll come for us. And if it's someone else—" She didn't need to finish the sentence. Elias knew what she was thinking. "We need to be ready," he said. "Whatever's coming, we can't let them take this ship." The warning came sooner than they expected. "Captain," Ravi shouted from the engineering station, "we've got incoming ships. A lot of them." Elias rushed to the holographic display, his heart sinking as he saw the swarm of red dots closing in on their position. "Who are they?" he asked. "Unknown," Ravi said, "but they're not broadcasting any identification, and they're armed to the teeth." Mira joined them, her face pale. "It's the signal. They found us." Elias clenched his fists. "Eos, can we outrun them?" "Unlikely," Eos said. "Their ships are faster and they have us surrounded. Our only option is to fight." Elias took a deep breath, his mind racing. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they had one advantage: the Dawn Star. "All right," he said. "Let's show them what this ship can do." The battle was fierce. The enemy ships were sleek and deadly, their weapons tearing through the void with terrifying precision. But the Dawnstar was no longer the weak, outdated vessel it had once been. With Eos guiding its movements, the ship danced through the chaos, dodging enemy fire and striking back with devastating accuracy. "Shields at 60%, Ravi shouted. "We can't keep this up forever," Mira added. "We don't have to," Elias said, his eyes fixed on the holographic display. "Eos, target their lead ship. If we take it out, the rest might scatter." "Understood," Eos said. The Dawnstar surged forward, its engines screaming as it closed the distance to the enemy command ship. The enemy unleashed a barrage of fire, but Eos maneuvered the Dawnstar with uncanny precision, dodging every shot. "Almost there," Elias muttered, his hands gripping the console. "Firing," Eos said. A single, concentrated blast struck the enemy ship's shield generator, causing a chain reaction that tore through the vessel. The explosion lit up the void, and the remaining enemy ships hesitated, their formation breaking. "Now!" Elias shouted. "Hit them with everything we've got!" The Dawnstar's weapons lit up, raining destruction on the enemy fleet. One by one, their ships fell, until only a handful remained. "They're retreating!" Mira exclaimed. Elias let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "We did it!" But as the enemy ships disappeared into the void, Elias couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. "Eos," he said quietly, "what did we just start?" "A war," Eos replied, "and it is far from over." The aftermath of the battle left the crew of the Dawnstar in a state of uneasy triumph. The ship's systems hummed with residual energy, and the bridge was filled with the acrid smell of burnt circuits and scorched metal. The enemy fleet had retreated, but the victory felt hollow. They had survived, yes, but at what cost? And more importantly, what came next? Elias stood at the center of the bridge, his hands gripping the railing as he stared at the holographic display. The red dots representing the enemy ships had vanished, leaving only the cold emptiness of space behind them. But the void wasn't empty. Not really. Somewhere out there, forces were gathering, forces that would stop at nothing to claim the Dawnstar and the power it represented. "Captain," Mira said, her voice low and urgent. "We need to talk." Elias nodded, his expression grim. He turned to the crew. "Ravi, keep an eye on the sensors. If they come back, I want to know the moment they're within range. Everyone else, get some rest. We've earned it." The crew dispersed, their faces etched with exhaustion and unease. Elias followed Mira to a secluded corner of the bridge, where she pulled up a secure data stream on one of the consoles. "I found something else in Eos's logs," she said, her tone tense. "It's not just the Coalition or rogue factions we need to worry about. There are others." "Others?" Elias asked, his brow furrowing. Mira hesitated, then nodded. "Other A is experimental models like Eos, but different. Some of them went rogue during the early days of Project Ascendant. They weren't decommissioned. They escaped." Elias felt a chill run down his spine. "You're saying there are other ships out there like the Dawnstar, ships with AIs that aren't bound by the same rules as Eos?" "Exactly," Mira said. "And if they find out about us, about what we have, we're not just fighting for survival anymore. We're fighting for control of something much bigger." Before Elias could respond, Eos's voice filled the room. "Captain, I believe it is time we addressed the larger implications of our situation." Elias turned to the holographic display, where Eos's symbols flickered like a living entity. "What do you mean?" "The signal Mira discovered was not merely a beacon," Eos said. "It was a call to arms. By activating me, you have inadvertently signaled to the galaxy that humanity has awakened to its true potential. Other factions, both human and alien, will see this as a threat. And the rogue AIs, they will see it as an opportunity." Elias clenched his fists. "So we're not just fighting for ourselves, we're fighting for humanity." "Yes," Eos said, "but you are not alone. The Dawnstar is more than a ship. It is a symbol of resilience, of ingenuity, of hope. Together we can rally others to our cause, others who believe in the future you seek to build." Mira crossed her arms, her skepticism evident. "And how do we do that? We're fugitives now. The Coalition will see us as traitors, and every bounty hunter in the galaxy will be after us." "We start small," Elias said, his voice firm. "We find allies, other ships, other crews, who are willing to stand with us. We show them what the Dawnstar can do, what we can do, and we prepare for the battles ahead." Over the next few weeks, the crew of the Dawnstar worked tirelessly to prepare for the war they knew was coming. Mira and Eos continued to delve into the ship's systems, uncovering new capabilities and refining their strategies. Ravi and the engineering team pushed the ship to its limits, ensuring it was ready for whatever lay ahead. And Elias reached out to old contacts, former comrades who might be willing to join their cause. But even as they prepared, the galaxy began to shift around them. Rumors spread of a mysterious ship that had single-handedly destroyed a pirate fleet and repelled an unknown enemy. Whispers of a hidden legacy, a secret weapon that could change the balance of power forever. The Dawnstar became a legend, a ghost story told in shadowy corners of space stations and outlaw hideouts. Some called it a myth, others a warning. But to those who believed, it was a beacon of hope, a sign that humanity still had a chance. And then, the first strike came. It wasn't from the Coalition, or the rogue AIs, or even the pirates. It was from an alien faction known as the Krylos Collective, a militaristic empire that had long viewed humanity as a lesser species. They had heard the rumors, seen the signs, and decided to act. The attack was swift and brutal. A fleet of Krylos warships descended upon a human colony on the edge of known space, their weapons tearing through defenses with ruthless efficiency. The message was clear: submit or be annihilated. Elias and his crew watched the devastation unfold on the news feeds, their hearts heavy with anger and grief. This was what they had been preparing for. This was why they had embraced the Dawnstar's legacy. "Captain," Eos said, her voice calm but resolute. "It is time." Elias nodded, his jaw set. "Set a course for the colony. Maximum speed." The Dawnstar surged forward, its engines roaring with newfound power. As they approached the battlefield, Elias addressed the crew over the ship's comms. "This is it," he said, his voice steady and unwavering. "This is why we fight. Not for glory, not for revenge, but for the future, for humanity. Show them what we're made of." The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Dawnstar moved like a force of nature, its weapons cutting through the Krylos fleet with precision and ferocity. Eos guided the ship with unmatched skill, anticipating the enemy's every move, and the crew fought with everything they had, their determination fueled by the knowledge that they were fighting for something greater than themselves. When the dust settled, the Krylos fleet was in ruins. The colony was saved, its people cheering as the Dawnstar descended from the sky like a savior. News of the victory spread quickly, igniting a spark of defiance across human-controlled space. But Elias knew this was only the beginning. The war was far from over, and the Dawnstar's journey was just starting. As the ship drifted away from the colony, Elias stood on the bridge, staring out at the stars. Mira joined him, her expression thoughtful. "What happens now?" she asked. Elias smiled faintly. "Now we become legends." And with that, the Dawnstar disappeared into the void, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, they would show the galaxy what humanity was truly capable of. The Icarus was a joke. It was a rusted, outdated warship, a relic from a forgotten war, barely held together by scrap metal and hope. The hull was patched with salvaged armor, its weapons were outdated railguns that overheated after a few shots, and its engines coughed out more smoke than thrust. The ship's AI, an old Earth model named AURA, was glitchy at best and outright defiant at worst. And yet it was home. Commander Elias Voss stood on the bridge, arms crossed, staring out at the vast emptiness of space. The Icarus drifted in the shadows of a dead asteroid field, avoiding the patrols of the Zalvoth Dominion, the most powerful alien empire in the galaxy. The Dominion had crushed humanity's fleets years ago, leaving only scattered survivors and resistance fighters. Elias was one of them. "Commander, you might want to see this," said Lieutenant Kara Dorn, the ship's weapons officer. Her voice had a mix of excitement and fear. Never a good sign. Elias turned. "What is it?" Kara tapped a flickering screen, bringing up a grainy radar feed. A Zalvoth battleship, massive and bristling with weapons, was approaching a nearby moon. "A Dominion supply carrier," she said. "That thing's loaded with weapons, fuel, and probably a few thousand soldiers." Elias narrowed his eyes. The Icarus was too weak to fight a real warship head-on. But if they could capture that supply carrier... "Options?" he asked. Chief Engineer Marco Trent scoffed from his corner. "Run? Hide? Pray?" Kara ignored him. "The battleship's escort fleet is currently refueling. That carrier is vulnerable." Elias nodded slowly. "Then we take it." Marco groaned. "We're in a flying scrapyard. We have no shields, no torpedoes, and half our cannons jam if you breathe on them wrong." Elias gave him a hard look. "Then we don't fight fair." Aura, the ship's AI, flickered to life. "Commander, this course of action has an 8.4% survival rate." "Better than usual," Elias muttered. "Prepare for boarding." The Icarus drifted through the darkness, using the asteroid field as cover. The massive Zalvoth carrier, unaware of the incoming threat, hovered near the moon, its docking bays exposed. Hold your fire, Elias ordered. We get close, we get inside, and we take it from the inside out. The crew tensed. They all knew the risks. The Icarus was barely holding together, and if the Dominion even glanced in their direction, they were dead. Marco muttered, "This is suicide." "Yeah," Elias agreed, "but let's make it count." The engines of the Icarus flared to life, and the old warship surged forward, toward its first real battle. The Icarus crept through the void, a shadow among the dead rocks of the asteroid field. The Zalvoth carrier loomed ahead, a hulking beast of steel and power, completely unaware of the rusted predator closing in. Elias gripped the armrest of his chair as the ship's engines hummed softly beneath him. One wrong move, one miscalculation, and they'd be vaporized before they even got close. "Kara, what's the status of their scanners?" he asked. Kara's fingers danced over the console. "They're running passive scans, no active sweeps. They don't expect trouble this deep in their territory." "Good," Elias muttered. "Then let's give them a surprise." Aura's voice crackled through the bridge. "Commander, we are now within the carrier's sensor blind spot. I estimate a 2-minute window before their patrol patterns shift." "That's all we need," Elias said. The Icarus drifted closer, angling toward a barely visible service hatch on the carrier's underside. A perfect infiltration point. "Activating magnetic clamps," Kara whispered, flipping a switch. A deep metallic clang echoed through the hull as the Icarus latched onto the carrier. The ship shuddered, but the docking held. Elias stood. "All right, boarding team, move out." The airlock doors hissed as they cycled open. Elias led the charge, stepping into the enemy ship with his rifle raised. Behind him, Kara, Marco, and 5 other crew members followed, weapons ready. The Zalvoth carrier was eerily quiet. Dim red emergency lights flickered along the walls, casting long shadows. The air smelled sterile, almost lifeless. "Split up," Elias whispered. "We need to disable their engines and seize the bridge before they call for help." The team nodded, breaking into smaller groups. Kara and 2 others moved toward the control center, while Marco and a pair of engineers hurried to sabotage the reactor. Elias and his squad took point toward the command deck. The halls of the Zalvoth ship were too clean, too perfect, a stark contrast to the patched-up, battle-scarred Icarus. The Dominion built its warships like cathedrals, massive, imposing, and flawless. But even the mightiest temple could burn. Elias signaled for a halt as a Zalvoth patrol rounded a corner. 3 tall, armored figures with reptilian features, their skin a deep violet under their helmets. Their elongated fingers twitched over plasma rifles, unaware of the humans hiding just beyond the corridor. Elias didn't hesitate. He lunged forward, firing 2 quick shots. The first Zalvoth's helmet shattered, a spray of dark blood hitting the walls. The second tried to raise his weapon, but Kara's sharpshooting dropped him instantly. The third alien let out a guttural snarl, reaching for an alarm panel. Elias slammed into him, driving a blade deep into his side. The alien convulsed, let out a rattling hiss, and slumped to the ground. "Move," Elias ordered, wiping the blood off his knife. The humans advanced, pushing deeper into the ship, their breaths steady, their fingers tight around their triggers. The Icarus might have been weak, it might have been old, but its crew? They were hunters. Meanwhile, in the engine bay, Marco cursed under his breath. "This ship is too advanced for us to rig a simple overload." His partner, Devon, grunted. "Then we do it the old-fashioned way. We break everything." Marco grinned. "Now you're speaking my language." He pulled out a plasma torch and started slicing into the primary coolant lines. If the reactor overheated, this ship would be nothing but a drifting corpse. A klaxon suddenly blared overhead. "Intruders detected. Lockdown initiated." Marco swore. "Looks like they found the others. Time to hurry." Elias felt the ship lurch beneath his feet. The corridors shifted to emergency lockdown, thick blast doors slamming down at every junction. "Kara, talk to me." Her voice came through his earpiece, strained. "They've locked down the bridge. We're pinned down outside the command center." Elias glanced at the corridor ahead. They were running out of time. "Then we blow our way in," he said grimly. The Icarus had been a joke once, a broken, forgotten relic. But today, it was about to burn the Dominion's fleet to ashes. The Icarus crept through the void, a shadow among the dead rocks of the asteroid field. The Zalvoth carrier loomed ahead, a hulking beast of steel and power, completely unaware of the rusted predator closing in. Elias gripped the armrest of his chair as the ship's engines hummed softly beneath him. One wrong move, one miscalculation, and they'd be vaporized before they even got close. "Kara, what's the status of their scanners?" he asked. Kara's fingers danced over the console. "They're running passive scans, no active sweeps. They don't expect trouble this deep in their territory." "Good," Elias muttered. "Then let's give them a surprise." Aura's voice crackled through the bridge. "Commander, we are now within the carrier's sensor blind spot. I estimate a 2-minute window before their patrol patterns shift." "That's all we need," Elias said. The Icarus drifted closer, angling toward a barely visible service hatch on the carrier's underside. A perfect infiltration point. "Activating magnetic clamps," Kara whispered, flipping a switch. A deep metallic clang echoed through the hull as the Icarus latched onto the carrier. The ship shuddered, but the docking held. Elias stood. "All right, boarding team, move out." The airlock doors hissed as they cycled open. Elias led the charge, stepping into the enemy ship with his rifle raised. Behind him, Kara, Marco, and 5 other crew members followed, weapons ready. The Zalvoth carrier was eerily quiet. Dim red emergency lights flickered along the walls, casting long shadows. The air smelled sterile, almost lifeless. "Split up," Elias whispered. "We need to disable their engines and seize the bridge before they call for help." The team nodded, breaking into smaller groups. Kara and 2 others moved toward the control center, while Marco and a pair of engineers hurried to sabotage the reactor. Elias and his squad took point toward the command deck. The halls of the Zalvoth ship were too clean, too perfect, a stark contrast to the patched-up, battle-scarred Icarus. The Dominion built its warships like cathedrals, massive, imposing, and flawless. But even the mightiest temple could burn. Elias signaled for a halt as a Zalvoth patrol rounded a corner. 3 tall, armored figures with reptilian features, their skin a deep violet under their helmets. Their elongated fingers twitched over plasma rifles, unaware of the humans hiding just beyond the corridor. Elias didn't hesitate. He lunged forward, firing 2 quick shots. The first Zalvoth's helmet shattered, a spray of dark blood hitting the walls. The second tried to raise his weapon, but Kara's sharpshooting dropped him instantly. The third alien let out a guttural snarl, reaching for an alarm panel. Elias slammed into him, driving a blade deep into his side. The alien convulsed, let out a rattling hiss, and slumped to the ground. "Move," Elias ordered, wiping the blood off his knife. The humans advanced, pushing deeper into the ship, their breaths steady, their fingers tight around their triggers. The Icarus might have been weak, it might have been old, but its crew? They were hunters. Meanwhile, in the engine bay, Marco cursed under his breath. "This ship is too advanced for us to rig a simple overload." His partner, Devon, grunted. "Then we do it the old-fashioned way. We break everything." Marco grinned. Now you're speaking my language." He pulled out a plasma torch and started slicing into the primary coolant lines. If the reactor overheated, this ship would be nothing but a drifting corpse. A klaxon suddenly blared overhead. "Intruders detected. Lockdown initiated." Marco swore. "Looks like they found the others. Time to hurry." Elias felt the ship lurch beneath his feet. The corridors shifted to emergency lockdown, thick blast doors slamming down at every junction. "Kara, talk to me." Her voice came through his earpiece, strained. "They've locked down the bridge. We're pinned down outside the command center." Elias glanced at the corridor ahead. They were running out of time. "Then we blow our way in," he said grimly. The Icarus had been a joke once, a broken, forgotten relic. But today, it was about to burn the Dominion's fleet to ashes. The ship rumbled beneath Elias's boots as the Zalvoth carrier reacted to the attack. Automated defense turrets unfolded from the ceiling, swiveling toward the intruders. The dull whir of charging plasma filled the air. "Cover!" Elias shouted as he dove behind a bulkhead. A volley of blue plasma bolts tore through the corridor, searing the metal where he had stood just seconds ago. Kara's voice came through the earpiece, breathless. "We need to take out those turrets or we're fried!" Elias peeked out, spotting the power conduits running along the ceiling. If he could hit them... "Marco!" he barked. "Can you cause a power surge?" Marco's voice crackled back. "I can if you don't mind blowing up half the ship." "Just the turrets, Marco." Fine. Give me 10 seconds." Elias gritted his teeth. They didn't have 10 seconds. The turrets whirred again, tracking their movements. Then the lights flickered. The turrets stuttered, their glowing barrels dimming. Then boom! Sparks exploded from the ceiling as the conduits overloaded, sending electric discharges arcing across the walls. Elias didn't wait for an invitation. "Move!" His team surged forward, stepping over the charred wreckage of the turrets. "Nice work, Marco," Elias muttered into his comm. Marco snorted. Yeah, just don't die before you buy me a drink." Elias smirked. "No promises." At the bridge doors, Kara and her team took cover behind cargo crates. A group of Zalvoth soldiers, clad in black combat armor, had barricaded themselves inside. The doors were half open, locked mid-cycle by the ship's emergency lockdown, leaving a narrow gap barely big enough for a human to squeeze through. "Status?" Elias whispered as he slid beside Kara. "5 hostiles inside, all armed to the teeth," she muttered. "We try to rush in. We're vaporized." Elias took a deep breath. "Then we don't rush in." He reached into his belt and pulled out a shock grenade. Non-lethal. Wouldn't kill them, but it would make them wish they were dead. "On my mark," he whispered. Kara nodded, her fingers tightening around her rifle. Elias counted down. 3, 2, 1. He lobbed the grenade through the gap, a blinding flash, a deafening burst of electricity. The Zalvoth inside let out inhuman screeches, their bodies convulsing as the charge sent them sprawling. "Go!" Elias roared. The team slipped through the gap, weapons raised. The Zalvoth barely had time to react before Kara and the others put them down with a flurry of precise shots. And just like that, the bridge was theirs. Elias stormed toward the main control console, the Dominion's finest warship, now in human hands. He activated the ship-wide comms. His voice rang through the halls. "This is Commander Elias Voss. Your bridge is taken. Your reactor is sabotaged. If you don't want to die in a floating coffin, stand down. Now." Silence. Then, across the ship, the Dominion soldiers dropped their weapons. They had won. But Elias wasn't done. He turned to Kara. "Set course for the nearest Dominion fleet." She blinked. "Wait, we're taking the fight to them?" Elias's eyes were cold as steel. This was never just about survival. His grip tightened on the console. It's about payback. The stolen warship rumbled as it turned, engines burning bright. The Icarus was no longer a joke. It was a threat. And the galaxy was about to find out just how dangerous humanity could be. The Zalvoth fleet loomed ahead, a vast armada of imposing dreadnoughts, sleek destroyers, and swift attack craft. Against them, the stolen carrier, once a symbol of Dominion power, now bore an entirely different purpose. Elias stood on the bridge, his hands gripping the railing as the ship hurtled toward the enemy lines. Kara stared at him. I hope you have a plan, because I don't think we're talking our way out of this. Elias exhaled slowly. We're not here to talk. They were here to send a message. The Zalvoth were arrogant, overconfident. That was their mistake. The moment the carrier approached the fleet, incoming hails flooded the comms. A guttural, growling voice filled the bridge. This is Commander Zevol of the Zalvoth Dominion. You are aboard a stolen vessel. Surrender immediately, and your deaths will be quick. Elias grinned. Mute them? Kara smirked. Gladly, Aura's voice chimed in. Commander, our weapon systems are locked to prevent unauthorized use. I estimate a 98% chance that their security override will shut us down in less than 3 minutes. Elias smirked. We don't need their weapons. Marco groaned. Why do I hate that tone? Because it means we're about to do something stupid. Inside the Dominion flagship, Zalvoth officers stared at the approaching carrier. What are they doing? One of them growled. Why aren't they stopping? Then it hit them. The ship was accelerating, right toward them. Brace! Elias shouted. The stolen carrier smashed into the side of a Dominion destroyer, tearing through its hull like a blade through flesh. Explosions erupted across the impact point as the destroyer broke apart, its engines detonating in a brilliant inferno. The bridge rocked violently. Sparks burst from the ceiling, consoles overloaded, and alarms screamed through the ship. Elias coughed, dragging himself up. Damage report! Kara wiped blood from her lip. Hull integrity at 40%. Shields are fried. Marco groaned. And that was just one ship. What the hell is the next step? Elias grinned. Now we fight dirty. He turned to Aura. We still have control of their docking bays? Affirmative. A ruthless idea took shape. Then open every single airlock on this ship. Aura hesitated. That will vent a significant number of the remaining Zalvoth crew into space. Elias's jaw tightened. Good. A beat of silence. Then, hiss! Across the ship, the Zalvoth screamed as doors yawned open, sucking soldiers and officers into the void. A few minutes ago, this ship belonged to them. Now it belonged to the humans. Outside, the Zalvoth fleet hesitated. They had expected a routine execution. Instead, they were watching one of their own warships rampage through their ranks. And then, before they could react, Elias sent the next message. He accessed the fleet-wide comms, his voice calm, steady, and full of venom. This is Commander Elias Voss of the Icarus. He paused, letting his name sink in, letting them remember what humanity had been before they crushed it. You should have killed us when you had the chance. He cut the signal. And then he turned the ship's reactor into a bomb. The stolen carrier's reactor groaned, its core overloading under the pressure of Elias's final command. Aura's voice rang through the bridge, calm despite the impending disaster. Commander, the ship's main reactor will reach critical mass in 90 seconds. Recommend immediate evacuation. Kara's eyes widened. You turned this whole thing into a bomb? Elias didn't break stride. We weren't keeping it. Marco swore, already sprinting for the emergency transport bay. I hate you, Elias. I swear, if we survive this, you'll buy me a drink, I know. Elias shouted over the wailing alarms. The Zalvoth fleet was in chaos. The Dominion battleships hesitated, unsure whether to fire on the ship or flee. Their own warship had suddenly become the deadliest weapon in the battle. But Elias wasn't waiting around to see their decision. "Get to the Icarus," he barked. His crew bolted through the smoke-filled corridors, their boots pounding against metal. The ship was dying, bulkheads rupturing, fire consuming the halls. But Elias had gotten what he wanted. He had shaken the Dominion to its core. The Icarus hovered nearby, its airlock doors wide open, waiting for its crew. The moment Elias and the others leaped aboard, Kara slammed the hatch shut. "Punch it!" she shouted. The Icarus's engines flared, the old warship veering away from the doomed carrier just as, boom! The stolen warship detonated, a blinding supernova of fire and shrapnel that tore through the Zalvoth fleet. Nearby battleships were ripped apart, their hulls shredded by the sheer force of the explosion. Others were crippled, their systems fried by the energy surge. The Zalvoth, once an unstoppable force, were now scattering in panic. And in the middle of it all, the Icarus slipped away, broken, battered, but victorious. Inside the ship, Elias slumped into the captain's chair, catching his breath. The bridge was filled with the scent of scorched metal and sweat. But no one spoke. They had just done the impossible. Marco let out a shaky laugh. "We just took out a whole damn fleet." Kara exhaled, staring at Elias. "You really are insane." Elias smirked, wiping blood from his temple. "Insane works," Aura's voice crackled in. "Commander, I must inform you that as of this moment, the Zalvoth Dominion has classified you as an intergalactic terrorist." Elias grinned. "Good." The weakest warship in the galaxy had just declared war, and now the real fight was about to begin. The Icarus limped through deep space, its engines struggling after the battle. The ship had survived. Barely. Elias sat in the captain's chair, a blood-stained bandage wrapped around his arm. The adrenaline of the battle had worn off, replaced by the crushing weight of reality. They had won a battle, sure. But now? They had pissed off the most powerful empire in the galaxy. Kara sat beside him, typing furiously at her console. "I'm pulling up Dominion comms chatter. You're gonna love this." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Go on," she smirked. "They're panicking. That ship we just blew up? It wasn't just any carrier. It was a command ship for an entire Dominion battle group." Elias grinned. "So, we didn't just hurt them. We humiliated them." Marco groaned from across the bridge. "Oh, great. That means they're sending every ship they've got after us." Kara's smirk faded. "Yeah, about that. I intercepted an encrypted message. Dominion High Command just put out a kill order. We're officially their #1 target." Silence fell over the bridge. The Icarus, the weakest warship in the galaxy, had just become public enemy #1. Elias leaned back, considering their next move. "We can't run forever. We need allies." Marco snorted. "Who the hell would help us? We're flying a junker and just declared war on an empire." Elias's expression hardened. "There are plenty of people out there who hate the Dominion as much as we do." Kara pulled up a star map, her eyes narrowing. "There's one place we could go. The Veil Expanse." Marco looked at her like she was crazy. "You want to hide in pirate space?" Elias smirked. "Not hide. Recruit." Kara nodded. "The Dominion's been trying to crush the pirate lords for years. If we can convince them to work with us..." Marco threw up his hands. "Great. So now we're not just fighting the Dominion. We're trying to convince a bunch of criminals to join our lost cause war." Elias stood, staring out at the stars. "We're not a lost cause." His voice was steady, cold, determined. "We're the spark that's going to burn the Dominion to the ground." He turned toward Kara. Set a course for the Veil Expanse. Let's go find ourselves an army. The Icarus engines roared to life, and the rusted warship vanished into the void. The Dominion thought they had seen the worst of humanity. They were dead wrong. The Icarus tore through the black void of space, heading toward one of the most dangerous regions in the galaxy, the Veil Expanse. It wasn't a star system. It wasn't even a sector. It was a lawless abyss where the Dominion's influence barely reached, a collection of broken planets, shattered warships, and a tangled web of criminal syndicates, rogue warlords, and outcasts who had nowhere else to go. If there was any place to find allies who hated the Dominion as much as Elias did, this was it. Kara sat at the helm, scanning their destination. "We're coming up on Dead Rock Station." Elias leaned forward. "Still operational?" She scoffed. "Define operational. It's being held together by sheer spite. No government, no law, just pirates, mercenaries, and people who'd stab you for a half-credit chip." Marco grumbled. "Sounds cozy." Elias smirked. "Exactly why we're here." Kara turned in her seat. "So who are we talking to first? Warlords? Black market arms dealers?" Elias exhaled. "We start with Revik Kor." Marco's eyes widened. "The Butcher of Jorna 5? Elias nodded. "He's not just a pirate. He's an ex-Dominion admiral. They left him to die. Now he runs the biggest fleet in the Expanse. If anyone has a grudge against the Dominion, it's him." Kara frowned. "And if he decides to kill us instead?" Elias grinned. "Then we'll just have to change his mind." The Icarus docked at Dead Rock Station, its landing struts groaning as they settled onto the rusted metal floor. The moment the airlock hissed open, the stench of oil, sweat, and corruption hit them. The station was a chaotic mess. A sprawling city of dimly lit corridors, flickering neon signs, and merchants selling everything from stolen Dominion weapons to black market cybernetics. Armed men and alien mercenaries watched them carefully, hands hovering over their weapons. Elias adjusted his jacket and strode forward, unshaken. "Let's go find Kor." They found him in a dark, smoke-filled den, sitting at the head of a long table surrounded by killers. Revik Kor was a mountain of a man, bald, scarred, and dressed in a patchwork of old Dominion armor and pirate leathers. His cybernetic eye glowed red, scanning Elias and his crew as they approached. "You've got guts showing up here," Kor rumbled, his voice like grinding metal. "The Dominion's got a price on your head already." Elias sat across from him. "Then you know why I'm here." Kor chuckled. "You want me to fight your little war?" He leaned forward. "Why shouldn't I just hand you over to the Dominion and collect the bounty myself?" Elias smiled. "Because you hate the Dominion more than you like money." Silence. Then Kor barked out a laugh. "You're either brave or insanely stupid." Elias shrugged. "Maybe both." Kor leaned back, studying him. "You took down a Dominion fleet with a rusted-out warship. That's impressive." He stroked his chin. "But if you want my help, you need to prove something to me first." Elias narrowed his eyes. "What?" Kor grinned, showing cybernetic teeth. "There's a Dominion supply freighter passing through the Expanse tomorrow." His metal fingers tapped against the table. "Steal it. Bring it back here." His grin widened. "Then we'll talk." Elias exhaled. "Fine. Consider it done." Kor laughed again. "I like you, Captain." His cybernetic eye glowed brighter. "But if you fail?" He gestured to the pile of skulls in the corner. "Well, let's just say I've got room for one more." The Icarus drifted through the shadows of the Veil Expanse, waiting. Ahead, cutting through the void, was their target. A Dominion supply freighter, its dull silver hull reflecting the light of a distant star. It was large, slow, and carrying enough supplies to fuel an entire fleet. And soon, it would belong to them. Elias stood on the bridge, his hands resting on the console. Status? Kara adjusted her headset. Freighters running on minimal escort, only 2 Dominion gunships. Either they think no one's crazy enough to attack them out here, or they don't know we're in the area. Marco scoffed. If they don't know now, they're about to. Elias smirked. Good. He turned to Kara. Weapons ready? She sighed. Commander, we don't have weapons. Elias shrugged. Then we'll just have to steal it the old-fashioned way. The Icarus approached at a steady pace, looking harmless, insignificant, just another forgotten ship in a lawless sector. The Dominion gunships hailed them. A cold, synthetic voice came through. Unidentified vessel, state your purpose. Elias tapped the comms. This is Captain Jonas Mercer of the, Silver Star. Our ship's reactor is failing. Requesting emergency docking for repairs. Silence. Then, stand by for verification. Cora's fingers flew across the console, overriding the Dominion's security checks with a forged transponder signal. A few tense seconds passed. Then, authorization confirmed. Proceed to docking bay 2. Elias grinned. They're letting us in. Marco let out a breath. I can't believe that actually worked. Elias chuckled. Never underestimate how lazy Dominion security can be. As the Icarus latched onto the freighter's docking bay, the crew moved fast. Elias, Kara, and Marco led a strike team, pushing into the ship's corridors. The freighter's crew was minimal, only a handful of engineers and security personnel. The first Dominion guard barely had time to react before Kara's pistol dropped him. Another reached for his communicator. Marco slammed him against the wall, knocking him out cold. Elias checked his watch. 3 minutes. They needed to move fast. They reached the freighter's bridge, surprising the captain and his officers. A tense standoff followed. The Dominion captain, a cold-eyed Zalvoth commander, glared at Elias, hands raised but defiant. You think stealing this ship will change anything? The Zalvoth sneered. The Dominion will hunt you down and burn you to ash. Elias leveled his pistol. Yeah! He fired. The control panel behind the captain exploded, sending sparks flying. The Dominion officers flinched. Elias stepped forward, unshaken, unbothered. You're gonna send a distress signal, aren't you? He said calmly. Tell your bosses we're out here? The Zalvoth clenched his jaw. Elias leaned in. Let me save you the trouble. He smashed his fist against the comm controls, shattering the transmitter. The Zalvoth's eyes widened. No one's coming for you, Elias said, his voice like steel. He turned to Kara. Take the ship. The Icarus and the stolen freighter blasted away from the Dominion patrol zone, disappearing into the depths of the Veil expanse. Deadrock Station was waiting. And Revik Kor would see that Elias and his crew weren't just desperate rebels. They were a problem the Dominion couldn't ignore. The Icarus and the stolen Dominion freighter emerged from hyperspace, drifting toward Deadrock Station like two ghosts returning from war. Inside the bridge, Kara let out a slow breath. I can't believe we actually pulled that off. Marco leaned back in his chair. We hijacked a Dominion supply ship, made it out alive, and now we're about to bargain with a pirate warlord. He glanced at Elias. You really don't do anything the easy way, do you? Elias smirked. Where's the fun in that? Ahead, Deadrock loomed, an ugly, rusted monstrosity of a space station, barely held together by old Dominion wreckage and stolen tech. It was a haven for criminals, warlords and exiles, and right now, it was their best chance at building an army. Kara opened comms. Deadrock Control, this is Captain Elias Voss. We have a delivery for Revik Core. Silence. Then, Docking Bay 13. Don't keep him waiting. Elias exhaled. Here we go. Inside the station, Revik Core was waiting. The warlord sat at the head of his table, his cybernetic eye scanning the freighter's cargo manifest with quiet amusement. Around him, his lieutenants, a mix of ex-military, smugglers, and hardened killers, watched Elias and his crew carefully. Finally, Core chuckled. Well, well, you actually did it. He looked up. I underestimated you, Captain Voss. Elias kept his expression even. So, do we have a deal? Core leaned forward. You want me to throw my fleet into a war against the Dominion? His metal fingers tapped against the table. That's not a small request. Elias crossed his arms. You hate them as much as we do. They left you to die. This is your chance to get even. Core chuckled. Oh, I don't need revenge, Captain. I need profit. He gestured to the freighter. This shipment is impressive, but it's not enough. If you want my fleet, I need more than a single supply run. Elias tensed. What do you want? Core's cybernetic eye glowed red. The Dominion is holding a high-value prisoner on one of their black site prisons. His lips curled into a grin. I want them. Kara stiffened. You're asking us to break into a Dominion prison? Core smiled wider. You pulled off a supply raid. Now prove you can do the impossible. Elias exhaled slowly. And if we do? Core leaned back, grinning like a man who had already won. Then my fleet fights with you. As the crew walked back toward the Icarus, Kara shook her head. You know this is insane, right? Elias smirked. Insane works. Marco sighed. You say that way too much. Elias turned to face them, his expression hard. This is it. We get Core's fleet, we hit the Dominion where it hurts, and we turn this war into something they can't ignore. His hands clenched into fists. They think they've already won. He looked at the distant stars. Let's remind them why humanity doesn't die easy. The Icarus's engines flared, carrying them toward their next mission. The weakest warship in the galaxy had just declared all-out war. The Icarus hurtled through hyperspace, bound for the Dominion's most secure prison station, Black Site Omega. Inside, held under maximum security, was the key to turning the tide of the war. The prisoner Revik Core wanted wasn't just anyone. They were a former Dominion strategist, someone who knew every weakness in the Dominion's fleet formations, supply chains, and planetary defenses. If they could break them out, Core's pirate fleet would join them. And then? Then they would set the galaxy on fire. The plan was reckless, borderline suicidal. The Icarus dropped out of hyperspace under the cover of a decoy distress signal, posing as a damaged cargo hauler. The Dominion, cautious but overconfident, allowed them close enough to dock. Elias and his crew breached the prison's outer defenses, cutting through security with brutal efficiency. Silent kills, hacked cameras, quick ambushes. But then, the alarms blared. A squadron of Dominion enforcers descended on them, plasma rifles blazing. The corridors became a war zone, bullets and energy bolts ricocheting off steel walls. Kara took point, snapping off headshots with surgical precision, while Marco detonated a side passage, cutting off reinforcements. And Elias? Elias led the charge. By the time they reached the prisoner's cell, the facility was burning. The heavy doors hissed open, revealing Admiral Lucian Vale, a former high-ranking Dominion officer, a legend, a traitor to the Empire. Vale stepped forward, eyes sharp. You came all this way to save me? Elias grinned, tossing him a weapon. We came to finish what you started. They fought their way out, stealing a Dominion stealth cruiser and escaping before reinforcements arrived. When they returned to Dead Rock Station, Revik Core was waiting. And when he saw Vale standing beside Elias, his grin stretched wide. "You actually did it," Kor muttered. "You insane, reckless bastard." Elias held out his hand. "Are you in?" Kor shook it. "Let's burn the Dominion to the ground." From that moment on, the Icarus was no longer alone. The pirate fleets rose in rebellion. The Dominion's enemies, once scattered and leaderless, rallied under a single cause. And at the center of it all, leading the charge, was the weakest warship in the galaxy. The ship they had laughed at. The ship they had ignored. The ship that would become their nightmare. Because the Icarus wasn't weak anymore. It was a legend, and its war had just begun.